Is there such a thing as a cheap sewing machine for leather? And this is a bit of a difficult one in a way, and it's very straightforward in another way. And the simple answer is yes, there is. It's the Singer 201. Got one here. This is the Mark II, the aluminium version. I have in other films popped up the Singer 201 Mark I, which is the old black, like Granny's sewing machine. Both very good machines. Both can sew light leather. Are they industrial machines? No, definitely not. And anyone who says, otherwise in my book is wrong. An industrial leather sewing machine has a motor 10 times the power, and it's all far more solidly built, takes thicker threads, etc, etc, etc. And you've probably seen me use a few industrial machines in some of my bag making films. But if you're in a situation where you want to have a go at some leather sewing with a machine, perhaps you don't want to commit a big budget, or you haven't got the space, something like one of these for knocking out a tool roll or two, or knocking out a purse, something in fairly lightweight leather, it's absolutely fine. Just want to be clear, because I know I'm going to get comments on this one, it's not an industrial machine. I'm not suggesting you start manufacturing goods with one. You probably could, but no, it's got quite a lot of limitations, some of which will be in my film on choosing a leather sewing machine. But the obvious limitations will be your thread size, the needle size, so you won't be able to do really heavy thick stuff, and the feed mechanism is quite basic, so it's not got a technical compound feed. But hey, if you want to, as I say, do something fairly straightforward using upholstery or thin vegetable tanned calf leather, this will work fine. I'll show you in just a minute what I mean. The other perhaps things to say just while I'm on the subject is thread wise you are going to be limited by the thickness of thread. So you could use like a polyester heavy jeans type thread, and that will work quite well. Won't be hugely strong. At the moment I've just put a spool of bonded nylon. Now UK that's NM60 gauge. US I'm never too certain on this, but according to my internet table, if it's right, that would be like a 69 thread. I hope that's right. Might not be. I can tell you if you measure its thickness, the thread is nearly 0.3 of a millimetre thick. So it looks a bit like a cotton, but it's actually a lot stronger. And this is absolutely fine for things like wallets and lightweight leather goods. So looks a bit incongruous. I've stuck it on the machine, but it does work perfectly well. I did think about putting up a film actually about the mods you could do to a machine like this to make it fine-tuned for leather working, because obviously it's, strictly speaking, it's a dressmaker's machine. But when you try some of the mods that you in theory should work, they're not actually quite so effective. So just as an example, I put a roll of foot on the machine. Now a roll of foot is good with slippery materials as it lets them glide through the feed mechanism far smoother. In theory you'd think that would work quite well with a machine like this. In actual fact, if you're doing tight curves, you'll find the threads get a bit trapped under the foot, and it's not actually that effective. So I think one's as well off just using the original foot. Okay, personal view. I did think the balance wheel on one of these is quite small, and I also assumed the balance wheel will be made of aluminium like the rest of the machine, because I mean the history of these Mark IIs is basically after the war you had stacks of aluminium knocking around. The Mark Is were considered to be backbreakers, and so they thought we'll make a nice light one, so they melt down a few Spitfires, Hurricanes and what have you and produce these lovely machines. As it happens, the balance wheel is cast iron, and surprisingly, because I've got an original Singer 9-spoke wheel here, it's actually very similar weight. There's not much in it, which surprised me. So there's no real advantage. In fact, there's a disadvantage with this particular one because it's got a smaller pulley on here. larger pulley on that one, it will slow it all down and give you more power. So contrary to what you might think, that is not necessarily a good thing to do, nor is the roller foot. Both of those surprised me actually. Anyway, leaving the machine as it is, putting bonded nylon through it, seems to work well. And my final key bit of advice is to use a lever point needle. Now, an ordinary dressmaker's needle is usually like a rounded point. A leather worker's needle is like a chisel point. It has more of a cutting action into the leather, and that's what you need to use. And you can buy them quite easily for domestic machines. I've got in there at the moment 100/16, so I think 100's the UK sizing that I recognise. I think the 16's the US, but it's a standard reverse twist lever point needle. So that works well. Let me pop a couple of things through to show you what it can do. I think a realistic sort of lever to use one of these types of machines is what I call an upholstery lever. It's kind of thing you get settees covered in, and actually it's quite good for things like tool rolls, garments, anything fairly light. Thickness wise, it's about 1 millimetre roughly, just under. It's fairly soft, fairly easy to work. And let me just pop that under, and away we go. See, it handles it very happily. Manages the turns, which is always a test. So that's going quite happily there. It's about, I think, 9 stitches to an inch, something like that. And well, there's not really, frankly, much wrong with that. There's my slips. It's quite happy, all in all. Yeah, and that's gone happily both sides. So that's in quite a soft sort of upholstery thread. Now, I could go on and start saying, oh, this machine will take, you know, 8 layers of super thick veg tan and stuff like that and chunk it through. The reality is, if you start piling really heavy levers through, you're going to burn your motor out. It's a domestic machine. What you'll also find as a limitation, which not many people will tell you about, will be with an industrial machine, they're designed to climb gradients. So things like my industrial flatbed will actually climb up to 6 millimetres of where you get a shift in heights, and you'll still get decent stitching. With this kind of machine, if I start trying to climb, it may not do it, and if it does, you'll probably get long stitches, short stitches and everything else. I will try it. I suspect it will, having said all that, it will now do it perfectly, but let's just give it a go. Which I've got another scrap. So let's start with a clean strap, it'll be easier for you to see on camera. So I have a bit of leather, I'm going to fold over a double. Pop that down and start sewing. Well, I think it's actually probably done that quite well, which I... Let's have a look. It has. I mean, it's not bad actually. The stitches do get smaller as it climbs the hill. Probably won't see that on camera very clearly. And to be honest, it looks perfectly acceptable. Yeah, it's pretty good actually, all in all. So, you know, if you're doing upholstery type leather, this machine will handle it very well. If we go on to, say, vegetable tanned, I've got calf leather here. It's about 1.8 mil, very roughly. Yeah, 1.8. So if I put both of those together, let's actually cut that in half first. It's quite a tough one, this actually. It's a good solid bag leather. Let's whiz it down. So that's nearly 4, isn't it? It's 3.6 area. Slight bit of struggle getting in. Once it gets going, we'll manage it. Yeah, sort of. With a bit of weight behind it, it will do it. That is beginning to struggle, but it is doing it. Quite well considering. Yeah, after that bad start, it's done a nice good stitch actually. It's quite a nice neat stitch. Let's give it a gradient. I think in fairness it will really, I have to take this at speed to get some momentum on it. So I'll sew straight line into this additional layer and I will pull on the wheel to get it going. Yeah, it's doing it, but it is, well no, it's actually, oops, come a bit off there. Yeah, it's not really quite managing that. It's doing it in places, not totally. Now, I know for a fact that if I put ordinary jeans polyester thread in here, which wouldn't be as strong, it probably would have managed these 3 layers, because I have done that before on this machine. I generally use this machine for sewing in cloth linings into leather goods. I think you're immediately hitting the limitations because you'll struggle to get it under the foot. It does just to go under. And I think that's a guide that you're beginning to push the machine to its limits. So let's get another bit of leather just for completeness. Here's some soft-ish calf leather. It would make a very nice purse or tool roll. By purse I mean money purse, not a tote bag. 1.8 again. We'll do 2 layers. And it's quite happy with that one. It is a softer leather. It's done that pretty perfectly by the looks of it. So I think that for a tool roll, even a little basic knife sheath, would be perfectly good. I could start trying to put things like vegetable tanned leather through, and you know the russet natural vegetable tanned leather, which would be harder. It would manage thin veg tan like that, much as it has managed this. But I think you are sort of pushing at the boundaries a bit. So I mean, that will make you a perfectly strong seam for something like a tool roll. Yeah, for your carving chisels or for small hand tools, little, smaller items, it would do it well. It would make a nice, if you're trying to do a bit of craft work in leather, it would do it jolly well. I'll top this one up to 3 layers. If it goes under the foot, it does. I may need to spin the wheel to get it started. No, it's doing it actually, just. Yeah, no, it's beginning to struggle on that. Once you get a bit of speed on it, it's happier. Yeah. So again, yeah, when I hit a gradient difference, it missed a stitch, but it's done it actually very well even there. So I hope that's given you sort of an impression of what a machine like this will do. The answer in my book is it's perfectly good for doing small lightweight stuff, not too thick a leather. I mean, at a struggle it's done the 3 layers, which are just over 4mm thick, of a softer vegetable tanned leather. But I think you are beginning to push at the boundaries. But hey, if you want to have a go at doing something like a little coin purse, a little wallet, a tool roll, some caps for your chisels to protect them, things like that, it's great. Doesn't cost much. Nice to use, nice and quiet, easy to use, and a good little machine. If you want to get on to doing, fancy tote bags where you're having to go through over different levels of seams, then something like this I think wouldn't be suitable. I think you want an industrial, and that's obviously why I use industrials for doing the bag making. But if you want a machine to start out, see what it's like, Singer 201, nice machine. Anyway, hope that's been of some help to you if you're thinking about this sort of thing, and thanks so much for watching. Bye bye.